Hey guys, welcome back. In a few of my last projects and also in future projects I'm going to use 18615 lithium-ion technology batteries. These are just really convenient for battery-powered projects to use. They have a good voltage and most of the time a very good capacity. The problem is if you want to buy a new cell, they are rather expensive. So what you can do instead is buy used and defective laptop batteries and just extract the cells out of them. And if you're lucky, you will get very high capacity cells that still work. Most of the time it's just the BMS that has a problem or that detected some imbalance between cells. That doesn't mean that the cell is not usable anymore, it just means that in this configuration it might be a problem. Or in this case, two of the cells got overheated, which you can see because this heat shrink material is just crumbled. Now, these batteries are rather expensive within Germany. Normally 5 batteries like these that have 18650 cells inside go for around 30 euros and 5 euro shipment, but I was really lucky to get all 10 of them for 10 euros and 4,60 euro shipment, so that's less than half of what you normally would have to pay. And this is plenty of cells for what I intend to do in future projects. I still have a few 18650 cells on hand, but they are not enough, especially that I need at least 2 of them for one of my flashlights. Now, buying used batteries is always a risk because it also could be that all cells are unusable. But if you're lucky, it's only 1 or 2 cells per battery pack that does not work. Or if you're really lucky, it's just the BMS that has some problem. Now, the battery packs I got here, again, they are from eBay. This cover was not really held in place anymore, so I just removed it. And most of the cells someone tried to tamper with. And that's not really a problem for me, but it's dangerous the way they did it. Now I zoomed in a bit more and we can take a look at these 2 damaged cells over here. And as you can see, the outer material is crumbled, and that indicates that we had some very high temperatures within these 2 cells. And just for an explanation, so the cells, how they work, they have a metal body. The body itself is completely metal all around. The thing is that we have only this contact over here is positive. The metal housing over here, the complete metal body and the bottom are negative. So what we do to protect them from touching each other, from shorting, creating some weird loops, is to individually isolate the cells, the body, with some heat shrink and add another small white, or in this case black, ring on the top over here to prevent, if you insert the battery into a holder, the positive and negative from shorting. This is really important that you do that. Pulling too much current from a non-protected cell, which is a cell that has no internal fuse, would cause it to heat up, and that could be very dangerous. Now these are cells with a hard body, metal body, so they are a bit more resistant to like piercing damage, a bit more resistant to all kind of other physical force, but they can still overheat and burst open and burn out. And if they're really hot, they can even explode. So, because these 2 cells are damaged so much from the outside, these are the ones that go directly into the recycling bin. I'm not going to even try anything with them. Maybe I'm going to read the voltage and see if they would actually have a voltage to them, but they go directly into the recycle bin because I'm not going to deal with cells so badly damaged from the outside or inside. But these cells over here, they look totally fine. We can test the voltage, see if they are not too much undercharged, and then we can charge them. And here's the thing. I don't know how discharged cells can be, but what I do is typically, if a cell is at like 3 volts, I'm just going to charge it. That's not a problem. If a cell is at 2.5 volt, I'm still going to charge it, but I keep my eyes on it, actually my hands on it, and see if it gets hot. If it does, you have to be really careful. And normally, because normally a cell that is totally fine, I measured actually temperature with my battery charger that I built in last 2 videos, or the last video. No, the last video was a test. However, this charger, if I charge cells that are perfectly fine, the hottest they get is 36 degrees Celsius, so that's not really hot. And I would be concerned about like 40 to 45 degrees Celsius, and I would not charge a cell that reaches 50. So that's just because I'm not experienced, but these are temperatures that in my opinion make some sense. Okay, 50 degrees Celsius is a temperature where I say, okay, that's just, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not dealing with a cell that gets so hot while charging with only 1 amp, because these are actual good chargers that have a very good curve, so if it gets closer to the maximum voltage, it charges with less current to not damage the cells. So that's just something you have to consider. The lower the voltages, the less likely you are to revive it, and the more dangerous it is. Now, I actually have revived some of these cells were actually down to 2.3 volt, and I just did what I said, is charge them individually and monitor temperature, and they got like 40 degrees Celsius hot at the time I revived them. But they are also now a bit older, and I only have 4 left of them, so I need more. That's the reason for this whole thing over here. Now let's talk about the cells. So somewhat tempered with them and did some mistakes. So for example here, hopefully you can see that someone actually inserted a screwdriver in here and damaged the cell. The insulation is partially removed. That is something you have to be really careful of. Don't just use a screwdriver and pierce into it, because even with these cells that do have a metal body, if you pierce it, you can cause a short, and that would be really bad. So the way I open these cells is, so this one is, for example, completely closed, no one tampered with it. What I do is I get some angle, get a screwdriver. That's too big of a screwdriver. I start with a small screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, get it between the plates, and I'm going in very shallow. I try to not go in deep into the cell, but very shallow. And once this is inside, I'm going to twist it, and hopefully these clips that hook into each other from the top and bottom part just open up, and both parts separate at this point. Now this takes some time, and be really careful not to go too deep into the cell. Just work your way around and search for an angle where it actually works. Okay, so I think you get the idea. And I'm now going to do that off camera for all of the cells. Well, actually, most of the cells someone already tampered with. What I'm going to do off camera right now is open the last cell, so we can actually start to extract the batteries. There are a few things that I think are important to know. Alright, I finally got it out, and I have to say, the LG battery design really sucks. Honestly. Oh man, they were not even protected. There was just, and I saw this, one of the sides where the LG information was on, that was just a sticker. The cells were not protected. I just could get them out. But beside that, what I'm now going to do is show you how I extract the cells. And, oh yeah, a bit of additional warning. When you try to open the cells, you have to be really careful over here in this area, where the cell sticks out a bit more, because this is the area with all of these connections and the BMS. Now, if you short one of these connections, that's not a big deal if the BMS still works, but we can't rely on that. But shorting something on the BMS, that could be really bad and lead to severe damage to the cells and potentially fire/explosion. The risk is low, but it does exist. And also I'm wearing gloves because these cells are old, and opening them up, I don't know what's inside. There could be damage to the cells and some spilled chemicals. Now, this is lithium-ion technology. So there's lithium inside, but different other chemicals, and even within the same lithium-ion technology compound, or rather chemical region, there are different compounds. So you never know what you come across, and that's why I wear some gloves. Now, I'm now going to very carefully use my screwdriver to loosen the cells from the bottom. There is some sticky tape, like double-sided tape on the bottom. You have to be really careful not to put too much stress on. Yeah, that's a region you have to be really careful of. Well, it's just, I have to get in there. Now, typically these 18650 cells, because they have a metal body, they can withstand the force that is applied by sticky tape. But like if you had soft cells with sticky tape, you have to be really careful not to bend them. Now, the cells are outside, and we can see there's quite a bit of this stuff. And now you might be able to see it a bit better. So there's sticky tape. And the two cells, they are bloated. So this is it? Yeah, that's just the insulation. So they got overheated. They got severely overheated. We have the connections on this side, and on this side, and the interconnections over here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is remove the BMS, and I also have to remove the temperature probes. And that's really funny. The two pairs of cells that were attached to the temperature probes are not damaged, but the two cells on the end that do not have a temperature probe are damaged. So don't know what that means, but it could mean that a third temperature probe would have prevented any damage. But I don't know that, it's just my assumption. So I need something to cut a metal. And cutting in one of these metals is not a problem, because we are either attached to positive or negative, not two metals, it's just a single metal strip. So you can cut inside of there, and we're not causing any short. So just get them away, but don't short two of these metal strips together. So now we can remove this part over here and separate the cells like this. We still have a metal strip over here that connects the positive to negative in this case. We have to cut that. Now we have our individual cells. Maybe I'm going to first remove. This goes to the bottom. And this, like here, first going to remove the potentially, oh yeah, they are damaged, and it looks like something spilled. You can see here is some, it looks like rust. Yeah, I think these cells are physically damaged. This is just some glue. But on this side, that does not look good, so they go directly into the trash, or rather recycling bin. I'm going to remove the metal strips from them so they can't short. And just out of interest, let's see if they still hold any voltage. I don't think so, because they look too damaged. But you never know. So where are my probes? No, there's not. They are discharged. Let's see the other ones. Oh, that's very low. They seem to be fine. So they have still 2.48 volts. These two 1.288. Oh yeah, that's a very low voltage. I don't know if I can recharge them. But let's separate the cells first, because they are still connected in parallel. That's not really giving you anything. So let's see. You see, there are just 4 spot welding points. So what I'm going to do is hold it in place and just rip the strip off of the cell. This is not a problem. They are not really held in place by much force. Or rather, you don't have to apply much force to remove them. Just hold in place and remove them. Now let me do that for all of the batteries, and I will come back and measure the voltage of each cell with you together. And then I'm going to charge them and see how many cells were actually salvageable. Alright, so I decided to do it a bit different, and instead of showing you each voltage from each cell, what I did was I extracted all the cells, I got the voltage, and I started charging the cells that do have a voltage. But unfortunately, a huge portion of the cells have 0 volts, which is very unfortunate. So these are all the cells. They are, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 0-volt cells that do not get detected by the chargers, and that's very unfortunate. The other cells, however, they range from some 1.2 volt cells to healthy 3.2 cells and above. So the 1.2 volt ones I was able to revive. That's a voltage. Typically, you say you should not try to revive cells below 2 volt, not 1 point something, 2 volt. However, I tried this and it seems to work. So I charged these cells over here 1.2 volt, and these 2.4 volt cells. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge all of the cells that do have a voltage, and I will monitor the voltage over the next few days. And if they hold their voltage, they should be totally fine, and there is nothing wrong with them. However, if they will change the voltage, I will make another quick update video and show you which ones do not work anymore from the ones that still had a voltage. However, the ones that do have 0 volt, I'm not going to throw them away, because I just was a bit, well, it's very unfortunate I get so many 0 volt cells, and I'm not happy with that. So I did take a look on the internet, on a web page from like electronics hobbyists, and some recommendations, and there was a topic about 0 volt cells and reviving them. So I'm going to actually do what they recommended you do if you want to try this. I'm going to try and revive these cells. However, there is a risk involved, and you have to be really careful. In a way, it's very specific how you have to do it. And this will be another video which will be out next after I release this one. So I will try to revive deeply discharged cells. The only thing I don't know yet is if they are actually discharged or they have an internal fuse that tripped. If it's an internal fuse, I can't do anything about it. if they are deeply discharged, I'm going to try to revive them. And some people reported great success with that, and some people warned that they could explode. The problem is there was not anyone who had the experience of exploding cells, but many people's reporting that the cells, if you were able to do it, to revive them, that they worked, not with their original capacity. However, I don't need cells with huge capacity all the time. So that makes another very interesting video, which again comes out in a few days. But beside that, for now, how it looks is I do have 4 working cells, 4 cells that are currently charging, and another 6 cells that I have to test. So in total I got 14 cells, 2, 4, 6, 7, 11, 15. Alright, 15 cells I have to test, and I think that they all will work. And if 15 cells work, I literally only paid 15 euros, around 15 euros, 10 euros plus 4.60 shipment for 15 working cells, so €1 a piece. And if I'm able to revive a few of the 0-volt cells, well, they were even cheaper. Now, before I end this video, let me tell you something very interesting about these chargers / BMSs. Here's the very interesting thing. When I installed a 1.2 volt 18650 battery, what this thing did was it only applied 2 volt to the cell and charged with approximately 50 milliamps. The reason I know this was because it's currently attached to my bench power supply, and I was inserting just one of the 1.2 volt cells at a time, and I saw that the current wasn't very high. And then I measured the voltage actually applied to positive and negative, and it was only 2 volts. So these do have very refined charging curves for even very low voltage cells. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please leave a like, comment down below. And other than that, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye!